Hello everyone, and welcome to this edition of the Think Tank. Today I want to talk about socialism. Can it work? Now, when Karl Marx wrote the Communist Manifesto, he was talking about social ownership as means of production, talking about the bourgeoisie and the proletariat. The proletariat continues to work, makes its wages, right? And the harder they work, it benefits the bourgeoisie, the capitalist factory owner. So it seemed, basically that he was talking about social ownership as means of production. So we shouldn't have this system of proletariat and bourgeoisie. Everybody should share in the fruits of their labor. And as a result of that, you won't have this imbalance. So this was supposed to be applied. This is a Marxist concept. There should be world revolution, meaning that this should spread on a worldwide scale. Socialism, the redistribution of wealth and of goods, should be spread out on a worldwide scale. They want the socialism to spread everywhere. And this has failed miserably when it comes especially to when there is a crisis, when you just have the basics to survive. And it's as if, you have, in a situation like that, you have hunger pangs in your stomach. And the way to relieve those hunger pangs is to fill the stomach of somebody else you don't know thousands of miles away. See, it doesn't make sense. People need the basics to survive, all right? If you're in a desert and you have one drink of water to keep you alive, giving that water to somebody else will kill you, and that person will survive, and under extreme conditions. This is what socialism can do. It can deprive you of what you need in the name of redistribution of needs, because that's what socialism can be. And it's kind of interesting how socialism kind of connects with totalitarianism. They go hand in hand, especially in a crisis, because socialist policies have to be enforced. People don't want to give up their goods. They don't want to redistribute their wealth. So there has to be a government to force you to do that. And it can lead to that. Now, of course, in times of plenty, they say, well, socialism may work better. Now, the way I see it, from analyzing this, from reading a lot of books and history, I can see socialism on a large scale fails. It's this redistribution of goods and wealth to everybody. And the other problem with it is that people are different. You can't have a socialist society when you have some people that work harder than others. You can have people that have a lot of talent, and you have people that have very little talent. And then you can't redistribute all the fruits of everybody's labor in an equilibrium. It just can't work, because you're going to have people working very hard and maybe some people not working at all. And what's going to happen is they're going to get everything that you make. And this is where the whole concept fails. Now, of course, it's great if everybody works as much as the same, if all humans are actually physically made equal, if they have all the same talent structures, okay, if they're basically equal as far as intelligence, and they can create and innovate things all in an equal manner, then the redistribution would work. Then socialism probably would work. But people are very different. They have different ambitions. They have different intellectual levels. So on a large scale, it's a problem. However, there was a time in history. There was a time in history where socialism was actually a beautiful thing. And this time in history was in a place. It was in a place called Gan Asar. Gan Asar was a kibbutz in Israel. And a kibbutz is basically a community based on agriculture. It was started around 1930s for the state of Israel. And what these people did was to have a community, a kibbutz, which means it's based on agriculture, and it's going to be a community of equal distribution. They're going to distribute everything equally. They had special places where people can get their clothing. Of course, they didn't have to pay for it, which is great, good thing that socialism can offer in that situation, and the fruits of everybody's labor. I mean, you may have, for example, shoemakers and carpenters, and then of course, you have farmers, because it's based on farming, and everything else that is required from a society to make it work. We have the needs of what people need. Like I said, it could be carpentry, somebody's an electrician, somebody's a bricklayer, so you can build things. And all the occupations come together, so everybody has what they need because everybody's working in equilibrium. And it worked. And the reason it worked is because of many important concepts. Many of these people were Holocaust survivors. They lost everything. They had no home to come back to. Their homes were destroyed, their money was taken away. Many of these people lost all their family. They had no home. For thousands of years, they came back to their land. They came back to resettle their land, to take their land back. And after so many conquests, whether it was the Romans, whether it was the Greek conquest, whether it was the Syrian conquest, Egyptian, and it was Great Britain later on. Before that, it was the Ottoman Empire. And they came back to take their land. And it was a new beginning. It was something wonderful in its aura. They were able to be back in their holy land, the land that was promised to them, in the Bible. And if you look at this specific place, this kibbutz, it was called Gan Asar. Gan Asar is actually mentioned in the Talmudic text, so it's an ancient location in Israel. And it was a farming community based on pure socialism. And these people knew that what they were doing was special. It was something very significant. I mean, these were people that came from the depths of human suffering, the lowest point, to the pinnacle of glory. They went from one extreme to another. And to make it work, people had to come together. They had to gel as a nation. And the way they were able to gel as a nation is because they had socialism. And it means that people actually cared about each other. They had a common goal. It was small, compressed. People basically all knew each other, and they knew they have to work together. There was no individualism here. Everybody pitched in as best as they can. And it was based on making a nation, of taking back their land, doing what they had to do, because they knew the odds were still insurmountable. They had enemies surrounding them from all sides trying to destroy them. And they had to work as hard as they can and work together to make things happen. And everything was redistributed equally. And the ambitions weren't there, as far as a capitalist ambition, because they had to work together. They were brothers. So on a small scale, on a very small scale, socialism can be a beautiful thing as a model. Now, if one really thinks about it and they say, well, capitalism has to work on a universal scale, well, in the case of Gan Asar, capitalism would have failed. It would never work because of the fact that these people had to work together. They had to put their individualist ambitions to the wayside, because if you have capitalism, people go their own way and they rise based on their talents, but there will be no cohesion. People wouldn't come together and actually have a common goal. They had to make this work. They wanted to take their country back. They wanted to make a new beginning after thousands of years of exile. So this was a common goal. Everybody came together. They were a true family. It was an amazing thing. I mean, beautiful in its aura. And capitalism would have failed here, and socialism really, really worked as a concept. And it's kind of interesting, people write books, Karl Marx wrote what he wrote. A lot of it was, socialism. And, you could write books and create models, but in my opinion, as far as Gan Asar, and maybe other places like it, if it happened by default. I don't know if there was a model before the people got together and said, well, let's create something called socialism. It happened by default. It had to. It was a socialist concept by default. People got together, worked together because they had to in order to make this work. All right? Like I said, they came from nothing to create something so important, so significant. They all literally had to work together and put their individualist ambitions to the wayside for the time being. things have changed in kibbutzim now, and other things are being done. People do have ambitions, but for the time, for a certain time, on a small scale, socialism can be a beautiful thing. And this is what Ganosar proves. But on a large scale, things are very different. So that's the perspective of the think tank. Now, I would like to know your perspective. Please leave your comments, and thank you for tuning in.